I was standing in my garage at 6 in the morning, watching steam rise from my driveway while my neighbor across the street, Brenda Morrison, stood at the property line with her phone pressed against her ear, clearly reporting me to someone. The snowstorm had dumped 8 inches overnight here in Boulder, Colorado, and every other driveway on Meadowbrook Lane looked like a winter postcard except mine, which was completely clear and dry, the concrete radiating gentle heat into the frigid January air. I had moved into this upscale neighborhood 3 months ago after accepting a position at Denver Engineering Solutions, the firm that had designed and installed the infrastructure for this entire development 5 years before I arrived. The irony wasn't lost on me that I now lived in a community where my own work hummed beneath every street, powered every home, and apparently was about to become the source of my first real conflict with the HOA. Brenda ended her call and marched across the street, her boots crunching through the snow. She was maybe 50, with that particular haircut that screamed, "I want to speak to your manager," and a puffy jacket that probably cost more than my first car. I stepped out of the garage to meet her, coffee mug in hand. "Good morning, Brenda," I said pleasantly. "Don't you good morning me, Xavier Harrison," she snapped. Her face was already red and not from the cold. "I just called the police about your little setup here." "This is absolutely unacceptable." I took a sip of coffee, letting the warmth settle me. "What exactly is unacceptable?" "That." She gestured wildly at my driveway. "That heated driveway. It's not in the HOA guidelines. You can't just install whatever you want without board approval. Do you have any idea how much extra electricity you're using? It's wasteful, it's ostentatious, and frankly, it makes the rest of us look bad." "I see." I set my mug on the hood of my truck. "And the police are coming because you're violating community standards and probably several electrical codes. I'm the HOA president, and I take these matters seriously. We can't have residents just doing whatever they please." The thing was, I hadn't installed anything. The heated driveway system was already there when I bought the house. The previous owners, an elderly couple who had moved to Arizona, had never activated it. When I found the control panel in the basement during my first week, I was pleasantly surprised. After running diagnostics and confirming everything was up to code, I had simply turned it on. It was my system, after all. I had designed the geothermal network that powered these optional features throughout Meadowbrook Estates. "Brenda, I think there might be some confusion here," I began, but she cut me off. "No confusion at all. I've lived here for 4 years and I know every single rule in our covenant. Modifications require written approval from the board. That's on page 17, section 4, subsection B." A Boulder police cruiser turned onto our street, its lights off but clearly responding to a call. I suppressed a sigh. This was going to be a long morning. Officer Martinez stepped out of the vehicle, a younger guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Morning, folks. Got a call about a dispute." Brenda launched into her complaint before I could say a word. She spoke rapidly, gesturing at my driveway, at me, at the houses around us, building a case that I was some kind of rogue homeowner hellbent on destroying property values and the sanctity of neighborhood harmony. Officer Martinez listened patiently, occasionally glancing at me with an expression that suggested this wasn't his first HOA rodeo. When Brenda finally paused for breath, he turned to me. "Sir, is the driveway heated?" "Yes, it is." "Did you install it recently?" "No, I didn't install it at all. It was already here when I purchased the property. I just activated the existing system." Brenda made a dismissive sound. "That's impossible. I would have known if the Hendersons had a heated driveway." "They had the system installed," I explained calmly, "but never used it." It's been dormant for years. All the infrastructure was in place. I simply turned it on. Officer Martinez pulled out his notepad. Do you have documentation showing the system was pre-existing? I do. The inspection report from my purchase shows the geothermal heating system and all its components, including the driveway radiant heating. Would you like to see it? Yes, please. I walked into my house through the garage, retrieved my home inspection binder from the office, and returned. The cold air felt sharp against my skin as I flipped to the relevant pages. Officer Martinez examined the documents carefully while Brenda fumed beside him. These are dated from your home inspection 4 months ago, the officer noted. The system is listed here as existing but inactive. Exactly, I said. But that doesn't matter, Brenda insisted. Activating it is still a modification. It changes the exterior appearance of the property. It uses resources. The board has to approve any change in how a property presents itself to the community. Officer Martinez looked tired. Madam, with respect, if the system was already legally installed and permitted, I don't think there's a criminal matter here. This sounds like a civil HOA issue. Are you saying you're not going to do anything? Brenda's voice rose an octave. I'm saying this isn't a police matter. You'll need to work this out through your HOA procedures. He turned to me. Sir, I'd recommend reviewing your HOA covenants and attending the next board meeting to address any concerns. I appreciate that, officer, I said. As Martinez drove away, Brenda fixed me with a glare that could have melted the remaining snow on her own driveway. This isn't over. The board meets Thursday night, 7 o'clock at the community center. You'll be receiving a formal complaint, and if you don't deactivate that driveway immediately, we'll be pursuing fines. Significant fines. She stomped back across the street, and I stood there in the cold morning air, watching my neighbors begin to emerge from their homes to start their daily snow removal rituals. Several of them looked at my clear driveway with expressions ranging from curiosity to envy to barely concealed resentment. I went back inside and called my boss, Leonard Fisher, the senior partner at Denver Engineering Solutions. We had a good relationship, and I figured he should know about this situation before it potentially got messy. Xavier, good morning, Leonard answered. His voice always carried a hint of German accent, a remnant of his childhood in Munich. Isn't it a bit early for work calls? Morning, Leonard. Sorry for the early contact, but I've got a situation. Remember how I bought a house in Meadowbrook Estates? Of course. Beautiful development. We did excellent work there. Well, I activated the heated driveway system in my home, and now the HOA president is threatening me with fines. She called the police this morning. There was a pause. The heated driveway that was part of our original installation. Exactly that one. Leonard made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a groan. Oh, this is going to be interesting. You know what the contract stipulated? Yes. I remember the basics, but I wasn't the lead on that project. That was before my time at the firm. Let me pull the files. Can you come into the office around 9? We should review everything before you go to that board meeting. I'll be there. I spent the next 2 hours clearing my email and researching HOA law in Colorado. The more I read, the more I realized Brenda might have a superficial leg to stand on, even if she was fundamentally wrong. HOA covenants in Colorado carried significant legal weight, and boards had broad authority to enforce architectural standards and community guidelines. At 9, I walked into the Denver Engineering Solutions office downtown. The building was a modern glass structure with excellent views of the Front Range Mountains. Leonard's corner office was organized chaos, blueprints and technical documents competing for space with family photos and engineering awards. Xavier, come in, Sit down. Leonard gestured to the chair across from his desk. He had several thick folders spread out. I've been reviewing the Meadowbrook files. This is quite the situation you've walked into. Fill me in on what I'm missing. Leonard pulled out a site plan. Meadowbrook Estates was developed by Pinnacle Properties back in 2019. We were contracted to design the entire infrastructure system, specifically a geothermal network that would serve the whole community. Very advanced for the time, very expensive. The developer wanted it as a premium selling feature. Right, I knew that much. What you might not know is that we designed the system with multiple optional features. Every home has basic geothermal heating and cooling, but homeowners could pay extra for additions like heated driveways, heated walkways, even heated patios. About 30% of the original buyers opted for these premium features. He pulled out another document. Here's where it gets interesting. The HOA covenant was written before our system was fully designed. The developer was in a hurry to start sales. The covenant has very strict language about modifications and installations, but it doesn't specifically address geothermal features because they weren't finalized yet. So there's a gap in the rules, a significant one, and there's more. Leonard smiled now, the expression of someone who held the winning hand in a poker game. Our contract with Pinnacle Properties included a clause that we would maintain the master geothermal system for 10 years after installation. That includes the neighborhood control systems. We have legal access to all the infrastructure during this maintenance period. We're still in that window. By 5 months, yes. Which means we have legitimate reasons to access and inspect any part of the geothermal system in that neighborhood, including what's in your home. I leaned back, processing this. So if the HOA tries to force me to deactivate my system, they might be interfering with our maintenance contract. Potentially. But it gets even better. Leonard pulled out another folder. Remember how I said 30% of buyers got the premium features? Well, your esteemed HOA president, Brenda Morrison, was one of them. You're kidding. Not at all. She has heated driveway capability. She's just never activated it. According to our records, only about half of the people who paid for the feature actually use it. Your predecessor was in that non-user group. So Brenda is complaining about something she has but doesn't use. Precisely. And here's the truly beautiful part. Leonard's smile widened. The HOA itself, meaning the community center and common areas, has geothermal heating from our system. Every time they hold a meeting in that building, they're using the exact same technology you're using in your driveway. This was getting better by the minute. Do you think the board knows this? I doubt it. Most HOA boards don't understand the technical details of their infrastructure. They see heated driveways as optional luxury items and the community center heating as basic utilities. They don't realize it's all part of the same integrated system. Leonard gathered the documents into a neat stack. Here's what I suggest. Go to that Thursday meeting. Let them make their complaint. Don't reveal what you know right away. Let's see how far they're willing to push this. If they formally fine you or demand deactivation, we'll respond with a letter from the firm explaining the legal and technical situation. That should shut this down quickly. What if it doesn't? Then we get more aggressive. We have grounds to argue that their interference affects our maintenance contract. We could potentially seek an injunction, but I don't think it will come to that. HOA bullies usually fold when they realize they're wrong and someone has the resources to fight back. I left the office with copies of all relevant documents and a much clearer picture of the situation. The next few days passed in a strange calm. Brenda avoided eye contact when we both happened to be getting mail at the same time. Several neighbors stopped me to ask about the heated driveway, and I kept my answers brief and friendly. Tuesday afternoon, I received a certified letter from the Meadowbrook Estates, HOA. The language was formal and threatening. Dear Mr. Harrison, this letter serves as official notice that you are in violation of Meadowbrook Estates covenants, conditions, and restrictions. Article Roman 7, Section 4b, which requires written approval from the Architectural Review Committee before any modifications or installations affecting the exterior appearance or resource consumption of any property. Your activation of a heated driveway system constitutes such a modification. You are hereby ordered to immediately deactivate this system and submit a formal application for its use. Failure to comply will result in fines of $100 per day beginning 7 days from the date of this letter. You are required to attend the board meeting on Thursday, January 16, 2025, at 7:00 p.m. to address this matter. Sincerely, Brenda Morrison, HOA President. The letter was copied to the other 4 board members, Patricia Whitmore, Ronald Stevens, Lisa Chen, and Douglas Pemberton. I recognized most of the names from neighborhood interactions. Patricia was a retired teacher who lived 2 streets over. Ronald was a lawyer who worked downtown. Lisa owned a marketing firm. Douglas was a contractor. I drafted a brief response, acknowledging receipt of the letter and confirming my attendance at the meeting, but I didn't deactivate anything. My driveway remained blissfully snow-free even as another storm system moved through Wednesday night. Thursday evening arrived with temperatures hovering around 15 degrees. I dressed in business casual, grabbed my binder of documents, and walked the 3 blocks to the community center. The building was a modern single-story structure with large windows, and, I noted with amusement, perfectly clear walkways thanks to the geothermal heating system my firm had installed. Inside, about 20 residents had gathered in the main meeting room. The board sat at a table in front, Brenda in the center, looking severe in a navy blazer. The other board members wore expressions ranging from curious to uncomfortable. Residents filled the folding chairs in rows, and I recognized several neighbors who had been particularly interested in my driveway situation. I took a seat in the middle section and waited. Brenda called the meeting to order at 7 sharp, running through routine business with efficient authority. Financial reports, landscaping bids, updates on street maintenance. Then she reached the main event. Item 7 on our agenda concerns a violation by Mr. Xavier Harrison, who resides at 2847 Meadowbrook Lane. Mr. Harrison, please come forward. I walked to the front, standing beside the board table rather than in front of it, a subtle positioning choice that made me seem less like a defendant. Mr. Harrison has activated a heated driveway system without board approval, Brenda began, her voice carrying that self-righteous tone people use when they're certain they're right. This is a clear violation of our covenants. Mr. Harrison, do you have anything to say before the board votes on enforcement action? I do, actually. I kept my voice calm and professional. First, I want to clarify that I didn't install anything. The system was already present when I purchased the home. Second, I'd like to ask the board a few questions, if I may. Brenda looked annoyed but nodded. Proceed. Does the board understand how the geothermal heating system works in this neighborhood? Patricia Whitmore, the retired teacher, spoke up. I'm not sure what that has to do with your driveway. Everything, actually. Can I ask which board members have heated driveway capability in their homes? Brenda's face tightened. That's irrelevant. I don't think it is. According to the installation records from Denver Engineering Solutions, the firm that designed our neighborhood infrastructure, several residents paid for heated driveway features when they purchased their homes. Mrs. Morrison, you're one of them. A murmur went through the audience. Brenda's face went from tight to flushed. Whether or not I have the capability is beside the point. I chose not to activate it because it's wasteful and unnecessary. But you paid for it to be installed, which means you modified your property from the base model. Did you get board approval for that installation? That was during construction, before the HOA was even formed. Completely different situation. Is it? The system was installed in my home during construction too. I'm just using what's already there, exactly as it was designed to be used. No modifications, no changes, just activation of existing equipment. Ronald Stevens, the lawyer, leaned forward. He had sharp features and intelligent eyes. Mr. Harrison, I think the board's position is that activation constitutes a modification of use, which requires approval. Even if the physical infrastructure existed, changing how it's used changes how the property presents itself. I understand that argument, but it creates a problematic precedent. If I need approval to activate a heating system that's already installed, would I need approval to turn on my air conditioning? To use my garbage disposal? Where's the line? The line, Brenda interjected, is where the modification is visible and affects community resources. Your driveway being snow-free when everyone else's has snow is visible. The energy consumption affects the whole neighborhood. Actually, it doesn't. The geothermal system is closed-loop and individualized for each home. My energy consumption doesn't affect anyone else. And as for visibility, that's an interesting standard. Should I need approval for what color car I park in my driveway, that's visible too. The audience was engaged now, some people nodding, others looking thoughtful. I could see this wasn't going the way Brenda had planned. Douglas Pemberton, the contractor, spoke for the first time. He was a large man with a weathered face and work-roughened hands. I'm curious about something, Mr. Harrison. You seem to know a lot about how this system works. Are you in the construction industry? I'm an engineer. I work for Denver Engineering Solutions. Douglas's eyebrows rose. The firm that built this neighborhood's infrastructure. The very same. In fact, I have detailed knowledge of every system in this community because I work with the original plans regularly. I wasn't personally involved in the Meadowbrook project since I joined the firm after it was completed, but I've reviewed all the documentation thoroughly. Brenda stood up, her chair scraping loudly. This is irrelevant to the violation. The covenant is clear. No modifications without approval. I move that we formally fine Mr. Harrison $100 per day until he deactivates the system and submits a proper application. I second the motion, Patricia said, though she looked uncertain. Before you vote, I said quickly, you should know that Denver Engineering Solutions maintains a contractual obligation to service and monitor the geothermal system throughout this neighborhood. That contract runs through June of this year. Any interference with the proper operation of installed geothermal features could constitute a breach of that maintenance agreement. Ronald leaned back, his legal instincts clearly engaged. Are you threatening legal action? I'm providing information. The firm takes its maintenance obligations seriously. If homeowners are prevented from using properly installed, permitted and maintained equipment, that creates liability issues. The equipment can still be maintained even if it's not in active use, Brenda argued. That's debatable. How do you properly maintain a system without testing it under operational conditions? Besides, there's another issue you might not have considered. This building, this community center where we're meeting right now, is heated by the same geothermal system. If the board's position is that using geothermal heating for anything beyond basic home climate control requires special approval, then technically, This meeting space is also in violation of that principle. Lisa Chen, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Wait, is that true? This building uses the same system. Absolutely. The entire neighborhood, every home, every common area is connected to one integrated geothermal network. It's one of the most advanced residential installations in Colorado. Denver Engineering Solutions won awards for this design. The heated driveways, the heated walkways, the community building climate control, it's all part of the same brilliant system. I could see the calculation happening on their faces. They were starting to realize this was more complicated than a simple covenant violation. I'd like to propose an alternative to fines and forced deactivation, I continued. Let me give a presentation at next month's meeting about how our geothermal system works. I'll explain the benefits, the costs, the environmental impact. I'll answer every question. Then the board can make an informed decision about whether using these pre-installed features requires special approval. If the board still wants to pursue enforcement after that, I'll respect the decision. The board members looked at each other. Ronald spoke first. That seems reasonable. Brenda's jaw was tight. Fine. 1 month. But the system stays off during that time. I'm afraid I can't agree to that. The system is legal, properly installed, and permitted. I'm not doing anything wrong, and I'm not going to accept punishment for something that isn't a violation. But I'm happy to help educate the community about how this technology works. This is outrageous, Brenda snapped. You can't just ignore the board's authority. I'm not ignoring anything. I'm disagreeing, which is my right. If you want to fine me, you can certainly vote on it. But I'll appeal that decision, and I'll have Denver Engineering Solutions' legal team review the covenant language and the original development agreements. That could get expensive for everyone involved. The audience was fully invested now, watching this confrontation like a tennis match. Several people had their phones out, probably taking notes or recording. Ronald cleared his throat. I move we table the enforcement vote until after Mr. Harrison's presentation next month. This is clearly more complex than we initially understood, and I think we owe it to the community to fully understand the technical and legal issues before taking action. I second that motion, Douglas said. Brenda looked furious, but she was outvoted. Lisa and Patricia both agreed to table the vote. The motion passed 4-1. As the meeting continued with other business, I returned to my seat, feeling the curious eyes of neighbors on me. After the meeting adjourned, several people approached me with questions about the geothermal system, about heated driveways, about energy costs. I answered as best I could, aware that Brenda was watching from across the room with undisguised hostility. The next morning, I was in my home office when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw a white van with certified home inspections on the side. A man in his 50s stood at my door with a clipboard. Mr. Harrison, I'm Gary Coleman, certified home inspector. The Meadowbrook Estates HOA has requested an inspection of your property to verify compliance with local building codes and HOA standards. I have authorization here. He held up a document. I took the paper and read it carefully. It was signed by Brenda and cited several covenant sections about the board's right to inspect properties to ensure compliance. Technically legal, if aggressive. You understand I don't have to let you in without proper notice, I said. This is my private property. I understand, sir. But the HOA covenant does give the board inspection rights with 48 hours notice. This letter was sent to you on Tuesday. He showed me a tracking receipt proving the inspection notice had been delivered. I had received it, actually, buried in the pile of HOA correspondence. I'd overlooked it in the drama of preparing for the board meeting. Fine, come in, but I'm documenting everything. I pulled out my phone and started recording video. For the record, this is Friday, January 17th, 2025, approximately 9:30 in the morning. HOA Inspector Gary Coleman is entering my property at 2847 Meadowbrook Lane. Gary looked uncomfortable but nodded. "That's your right, sir." I gave him access to the house and followed him as he conducted his inspection. He was thorough and professional, checking electrical panels, examining the geothermal system controls, inspecting the driveway heating infrastructure. In the basement, he spent considerable time photographing the control systems and taking notes. "Everything looks properly permitted and installed," Gary said after about an hour. "The electrical work is up to code. The geothermal system appears to be functioning as designed. I don't see any violations. You'll include that in your report to the HOA?" "Yes, sir." My job is to document facts, not make judgments about HOA rules. I'll note that all systems are properly installed and functioning safely within code requirements. After Gary left, I called Leonard again. "They're really pushing this," Leonard said when I explained about the inspection. "Brenda must be feeling defensive after last night's meeting. Have you heard anything more from the board?" "Not yet, but I'm documenting everything. I recorded the entire inspection." "Good. Keep doing that." I'm going to have our legal team draft a letter to the HOA clarifying our position on the maintenance contract. Nothing threatening, just informational. They should receive it early next week. Saturday brought another surprise. I was working in my garage when Brenda's husband, Tom Morrison, walked up the driveway. Tom was a quiet man, an accountant I'd met briefly at a summer neighborhood barbecue before I knew who Brenda was. "Xavier, can we talk for a minute?" He looked uncomfortable, hands in his jacket pockets. "Sure, Tom. What's on your mind?" "Look, I want to apologize for how Brenda's been handling this whole thing. She gets very invested in the HOA stuff, sometimes too invested. The heated driveway thing, it's not personal. She's just very rules-focused." "I appreciate that, Tom, but this has felt pretty personal. Calling the police, demanding inspections, threatening significant fines." Tom sighed. "Yeah, I know. The thing is, Brenda's been HOA president for 2 years, and she's really proud of keeping property values up and maintaining standards. She sees your driveway as a threat to that somehow. But you have the same capability in your driveway. She paid for it to be installed." "I know. I've tried pointing that out. She says it's different because we chose not to activate it." He ran a hand through his thinning hair. "Between you and me, I think she's embarrassed. She spent $3,000 on that heated driveway option and convinced herself we didn't need it. Now here you are using yours, and it's obviously convenient and practical. She's realizing she wasted money by not using it." That was an interesting perspective I hadn't considered. Brenda wasn't just enforcing rules. She was defending her own decision not to use a feature she'd paid for. "So what do you want from me, Tom?" "Nothing, really. Just wanted you to know it's not about you personally. And maybe, if you could go easy on her at the next meeting, that would be good. The neighborhood functions better when people get along. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I just want to use my driveway the way it was designed to be used. If Brenda wants to drop the enforcement action, I'm happy to move on." Tom nodded slowly. "I'll talk to her. No promises, but I'll try." He left, and I went back to organizing my garage, thinking about HOA politics and wounded pride and how complicated neighborhood life could become. Monday morning, Leonard called with news. "The HOA received our letter today. I made sure it was hand-delivered to Brenda Morrison's address. She's going to love it." "What did you include?" "Everything. The contract terms, our maintenance obligations, the technical specifications of the system." and a polite but firm explanation that Denver Engineering Solutions considers the heated driveway features to be part of the integrated geothermal infrastructure we're contracted to maintain. We also included a reminder that 30% of homeowners have these features installed, and we expect them all to be available for operational testing during our maintenance period. That's going to escalate things. Maybe. Or maybe it will help Brenda understand she's fighting a losing battle. We also copied the other board members, so they are aware of our position. Tuesday afternoon, I got a call from Ronald Stevens, the lawyer on the HOA board. "Mr. Harrison, this is Ronald Stevens. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" "Of course. I've reviewed the letter from Denver Engineering Solutions, and I've also done my own research on the covenants and the original development contracts. I think the board needs to reconsider its position on this matter." "I'm glad to hear that. The problem is Brenda. She's dug in on this. She sees it as a test of the board's authority. If we back down now, she thinks it sends a message that homeowners can ignore the covenant. But I'm not ignoring anything. I'm using equipment that was legally installed with all proper permits." "I understand that, and I agree with you. But Brenda doesn't see it that way. Look, I'm going to push for a full board vote to drop the enforcement action. I think I can get Lisa and Douglas on board. Patricia is harder to read, but she usually votes with the majority. That would be 4 votes to drop this, enough to override Brenda. What can I do to help? Your presentation next month needs to be good. Really good. Show the community why this system is beneficial, why it's not wasteful, why it actually increases property values. If you can win over the residents, the board will have political cover to back down gracefully. I can do that. One more thing. Do you know how many other homeowners have this heated driveway capability? According to Denver Engineering Solutions records, 43 homes in Meadowbrook Estates paid for the heated driveway option when they were built. Ronald was quiet for a moment. 43? That's nearly a third of the neighborhood. Exactly. Only about half of them actually use it, but they all have it available. If the board sets a precedent that using this feature requires special approval, you're creating a nightmare of retroactive enforcement. That's an excellent point. I'll bring that up to the other board members. Thank you for your time, Mr. Harrison. The next few weeks were relatively quiet. My driveway remained snow-free through several storms, and gradually, I noticed other cleared driveways appearing around the neighborhood. Someone 3 streets over activated their system. Then someone else. The word was spreading that these features existed and were legal to use. Brenda sent me 2 more certified letters during this time, each one reiterating the enforcement action and the pending fines, but no actual fines appeared on my account. I suspected Ronald was holding her back from the board side. I spent my evenings preparing for the February presentation. I created a detailed PowerPoint explaining geothermal heating technology, showing cost-benefit analyses, environmental impact data, and property value research. I reached out to the original developers at Pinnacle Properties and got testimonial letters about why they'd chosen this advanced system. I even contacted the State Energy Office and got statistics showing that Meadowbrook Estates had one of the most efficient residential heating profiles in Colorado. The February board meeting arrived on a Thursday evening with temperatures in the low 20s. I showed up early to set up my laptop and projector. The room filled quickly. Word had spread that this would be an interesting meeting. I estimated 50 residents showed up, more than double the usual attendance. Brenda called the meeting to order with visible tension in her shoulders. We went through routine business first, then she introduced my presentation with minimal enthusiasm. Mr. Harrison has requested time to discuss the geothermal system in our neighborhood. The floor is yours. I stood at the front with my presentation ready. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Xavier Harrison, and I'm a mechanical engineer at Denver Engineering Solutions. Tonight, I want to talk about the amazing technology infrastructure in our neighborhood and why we should all be proud to live in one of the most advanced residential communities in Colorado. I clicked to the first slide, showing an aerial view of Meadowbrook Estates. When Pinnacle Properties developed this neighborhood in 2019, they made a forward-thinking decision to invest in geothermal heating and cooling for every home. This wasn't just about being environmentally conscious, though that's certainly a benefit. It was about creating lasting value and exceptional comfort for residents. The next slides explained how geothermal systems work, using simple diagrams to show the underground loop system that exchanges heat with the constant temperature of the earth. I showed energy cost comparisons, demonstrating that homeowners in Meadowbrook saved an average of 40% on heating and cooling compared to conventional systems. Now, about 30% of homes in this neighborhood have an additional feature: heated driveways. Some of you know you have this because you paid extra for it during construction. Some of you might not know it exists because previous owners installed it and never mentioned it. But for those who have it, it's an incredibly practical feature that saves time, reduces injury risk from slipping on ice, and extends the life of your driveway by preventing freeze-thaw damage. I showed a cost analysis. Operating a heated driveway during the winter months costs approximately $40 to $60 extra per month, depending on snowfall. That's less than most people spend on snow removal services, and it works automatically without any physical labor. Several people were nodding. I could see interest on faces throughout the room. The environmental impact is minimal because geothermal is one of the most efficient heating methods available. We're not burning fossil fuels or using resistance electric heating. We're moving existing heat from the earth, which is far more efficient. A heated driveway in this system uses less energy than a heated driveway with conventional electric heating would use. I clicked to a slide showing property values. I've researched comparable neighborhoods in the Boulder area. Communities with geothermal systems command a premium of 5 to 8% over similar homes with conventional heating. That premium increases when homes have additional features like heated driveways. These aren't frivolous luxuries. They're value-adding amenities that make our homes more attractive to future buyers. Brenda was stone-faced, but I could see other board members engaging with the material. Patricia was taking notes. Lisa looked genuinely interested. Now, let's talk about the HOA covenant language. I've reviewed Article 7, Section 4, Subsection B, which requires approval for modifications. Here's the key question. Is activating a pre-installed, properly permitted system a modification? I would argue it's not. The system was part of the original construction. It was inspected and approved by Boulder County. It's maintained under warranty by the company that installed it. Activating it is simply using your home as it was designed to be used. I showed a slide with analogies. Consider other home systems. You don't need HOA approval to turn on your air conditioning in summer, even though that's visible because your AC unit runs outside. You don't need approval to use your garage door opener instead of manually lifting the door. These are pre-installed features that you have the right to use. Heated driveways are no different. Ronald was nodding now. Even Douglas looked convinced. Finally, I want to address the concern about setting precedents. If the board requires special approval for using heated driveways, what message does that send? It tells homeowners that they can't fully utilize their property without permission for every decision. It creates uncertainty and potentially devalues the investment that early buyers made when they paid extra for these features. Instead, I propose the board adopt a clear policy. Pre-installed, permitted features can be used by homeowners without additional approval. This protects property rights while maintaining reasonable community standards. I advanced to my final slide, which showed a photo of Meadowbrook Estates in summer, looking beautiful and well-maintained. We live in an exceptional neighborhood with exceptional infrastructure. Let's make sure our rules reflect that reality and support homeowners in getting the most value and enjoyment from their properties. Thank you for your time. Applause broke out, genuine and sustained. Several people stood, including some I didn't even know. Brenda's face had gone from stone to slightly pale. "Are there questions?" I asked. Hands shot up. For the next 30 minutes, I answered questions about costs, installation, activation procedures, and maintenance. People wanted to know if they could activate their systems, how to find out if they had the capability, what the process involved. I provided contact information for Denver Engineering Solutions and explained that anyone could request their home's technical specifications. Finally, Brenda cut off the questions. "Thank you, Mr. Harrison. The board will take this information under advisement." "Actually," Ronald said, "I'd like to make a motion right now." I move that the board formally recognize that activation of pre-installed, permitted geothermal features, including heated driveways, does not constitute a modification requiring board approval under Article 7, Section 4, Subsection B. "I second the motion," Douglas said immediately. Brenda looked trapped. "This should be discussed in executive session first." "I disagree," Ronald replied. "This affects the entire community and the community is here tonight. I call for an immediate vote." Patricia looked between Brenda and Ronald, then spoke quietly. "I think Xavier made a good case. I vote yes on the motion." "Yes," Lisa said. "Yes," Douglas confirmed. Ronald looked at Brenda. "That's 4 votes in favor. Your vote won't change the outcome, but do you want to go on record?" Brenda's voice was tight. "No, I vote no, but the motion passes." She banged her gavel with unnecessary force. "Is there any other business?" The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. Afterward, residents surrounded me, thanking me for the presentation, asking more questions, sharing their own experiences with the geothermal system. Several people mentioned they were going to activate their heated driveways for the next winter. Tom Morrison appeared at my elbow. "That was well done. Really impressive." "Thanks, Tom. How's Brenda doing?" He glanced over to where his wife stood alone by the board table, collecting papers with jerky movements. "Not great, but she'll come around. She always does." Over the following weeks, I noticed a subtle shift in the neighborhood. More driveways stayed clear during snowstorms. People I'd never spoken to before waved hello. Brenda avoided me completely, which was fine. In March, I received a formal letter from the HOA, this time signed by Ronald as acting president. Brenda had stepped down, citing personal commitments. The letter thanked me for my educational presentation and confirmed that no fines would be assessed for my heated driveway use. It also included new guidelines clarifying that pre-existing geothermal features did not require activation approval. I ran into Brenda one Saturday in April at the grocery store. She was alone, pushing a cart through the produce section. Our eyes met, and for a moment I thought she'd turn away, but instead she approached me. "Xavier," she said stiffly. "Brenda, how are you?" "I'm fine." "Look, I owe you an apology. I overreacted about the driveway situation. I was wrong about the rules, and I was wrong to push it as hard as I did." I appreciate that. It took courage to say. She nodded, still stiff but genuine. Tom told me what you said about not trying to embarrass me. That meant something. You could have been much more aggressive at that meeting, but you kept it professional. So thank you for that. We're neighbors, Brenda. We have to live together. No point in making enemies. Well, for what it's worth, I activated our heated driveway last month. You were right. It's actually quite nice. I couldn't help but smile. Welcome to the club, she almost smiled back. Yes, well, I suppose I should have listened earlier. Goodbye, Xavier. Goodbye, Brenda. The rest of spring and summer passed peacefully. The HOA elected Ronald as permanent president, and he ran the board with a much more measured approach. Several committees formed to improve communication between the board and residents. I was asked to join the infrastructure committee, which I accepted. In June, Denver Engineering Solutions completed its maintenance contract with Meadowbrook Estates. Leonard personally came to the final walkthrough, inspecting the geothermal system throughout the neighborhood and certifying everything was in excellent condition. You know, Leonard said as we stood in my driveway on a warm June afternoon, this whole situation worked out well. We got excellent data on long-term system performance. The neighborhood got educated about their infrastructure, and you got to use your engineering knowledge in a practical way. And I got a functioning heated driveway out of it, I added. There is that. Though I imagine next winter half the neighborhood will have theirs running too. He was right. When the first major snowstorm hit in December, I counted 17 clear driveways on my morning walk, compared to just my own the previous January. The HOA newsletter even ran a feature article about geothermal efficiency and winter comfort, written by Patricia Whitmore, who had apparently discovered a new interest in sustainable technology. Brenda remained cordial but distant. Tom was friendlier and sometimes stopped to chat when we were both outside. The neighborhood settled into a comfortable rhythm, and my initial conflict became just another story in the community's history. The following spring, when new neighbors moved in across the street, they asked me about the heated driveway after noticing mine was clear during a late-season snow. I explained the whole system, gave them Denver Engineering Solutions contact information, and shared my story about the HOA battle. So you basically revolutionized the neighborhood by just turning on your driveway? The husband, Kevin, asked with amusement. I wouldn't say revolutionized, more like I forced everyone to actually read the technical specs of their homes and understand what they'd paid for. Still, that's impressive, and kind of funny. It had its moments. Years later, I'm still in that house on Meadowbrook Lane. The geothermal system still runs perfectly. My driveway is still heated every winter. Brenda moved to a different neighborhood about 3 years after our confrontation, and Ronald served as HOA president for 6 years before passing the role to Lisa Chen, who's done an excellent job. The neighborhood learned something valuable from that whole experience. Sometimes rules need to be questioned, not out of defiance but out of genuine misunderstanding or outdated thinking. The HOA covenant was amended to specifically address pre-installed features and their use, creating clarity for future homeowners. I learned something too. Being right isn't enough. You have to be willing to educate, to communicate, to find common ground even with people who initially oppose you. Brenda and I were never friends, but we reached a mutual respect, and that was enough. And on snowy mornings when I'm drinking coffee in my warm garage, watching my neighbors shovel while my driveway stays clear and dry, I'll admit I feel a small sense of satisfaction. Not because I won some HOA battle, but because I'm using my home exactly as it was brilliantly designed to be used, thanks to excellent engineering and a willingness to stand up for what made sense. The heated driveway still works perfectly. The system still hums efficiently underground, and life in Meadowbrook Estates continues with all its small dramas and quiet satisfactions. Sometimes the most interesting conflicts come from the most mundane sources, and sometimes resolution comes from simply helping people understand the technology they live with every day.